Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I am Agi Keramidas and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out and take action towards the next level of your life. I am interviewing leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week, every Monday and Thursday. In today's show, I am delighted to speak with Laura DiBenedetto. Laura, you are a TEDx speaker, a life mastery coach, and the author of the #1 best-selling book, The 6 Habits. You started your first company at 19 years old, and you achieved significant success, but also exhaustion and depression. You retired at 37, being financially free, only to discover that your heart was empty, as you say, and that happiness wasn't what you thought it was. That led you to a quest and research to figure out why you felt so hollow inside, despite accomplishing and acquiring so much. Since then, you had some profound realizations. You say that you've learned the formula to build a life of joy, and now your passion is to share this message with others. Laura, welcome to Personal Development Mastery. I'm thrilled and excited to be speaking with you today.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. I'm really going to enjoy this chat. I just know it.
That's a fantastic start, and I also feel the same way. Laura, shall we start with some elements of your journey, your incredible journey? If I were to ask you to give me a milestone or a turning point in your life, maybe in terms of personal development, which one would you choose?
Milestone in terms of personal development. That's a good one. I mean, yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So as you said, I retired early. And I think that for most people that would listen to me say that, they'd be like, great, you're not relatable. I don't want to talk to you anymore because we have nothing in common, but here's the truth of all of it. So I started a company at 19 years old because I had 14 jobs that year and I got fired from half and I quit the other half. I was like not employee of the month. I was so just not employable. And I just really wanted to create something that I couldn't be fired from and that I didn't hate. Mm-hmm. So I created a company, and for probably the first 8 years or so, I just had the wrong business model. And, I was constantly burning myself out, actually, because I had the wrong business model. But, I was able to make enough to pay my bills. Then one day when I was on the brink of quitting, because turns out entrepreneurship is actually pretty difficult, I want to be totally transparent. I wanted to quit roughly 500 times over the course of the 19 years. But this was the time that I was the most serious. So I was trying to find my way out, but it was through trying to find an efficient way out that I was like, oh, this is how I can scale the company. Oh, okay. So I decided to scale the company a little bit, make it a little bit bigger than just myself. And that's when I started to achieve a lot of real success. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of my health and my sanity, and I had no one telling me, lovingly, so this is how you build a company, and this is how you do it and remain happy and healthy. And this is how you don't burn yourself down. Nope. I just thought that in order to achieve success, you just throw more time at it or throw more money at it. So I did both of those things, and I was able to scale and grow the company and make a lot more money than I thought I was ever going to. I think the big shift for me was, while I was still in the company, when I realized the burnout I was experiencing, and this was right around when I was 32. And to be that burnt out from 19 until 32, just as a really young woman, I was like, wow, okay, this is awful. I'm so tired. I don't understand. And I was just grumpy and whatever. So I was trying to figure out, well, I need the money. I worked this hard. How do I keep the money, but not all the headaches? Because I got to get out because my health is really starting to suffer. So It's funny, they say necessity is the mother of invention. It really is, because I needed to find my way out. So I was like, well, what if I sold half the company? So then I could kind of keep some money, but they can take on all the work. And I found the partner of my dreams. So she has been part of my life for a while, and she lovingly fired me at 37, but that was the only time in my life I ever wanted to be fired. So it took me a while to find her. But the thing about like the retirement, I'm not like Jeff Bezos, you know? Well, I'd love to have his bank account, don't get me wrong. But the thing about retirement is it sounds like, wow, you've made it. You're so rich. You're so successful. I had achieved a lot of material success. I had money, and I had a company that was going really well. And, you know, I had gotten married and all of the things, and my life looked so good on paper. But off paper, what was happening was I was fighting like crazy with my new husband because I was just tired and, if I may be so bold, incredibly bitchy. I was just really burnt out. And my friends and family were getting the worst of me. I was really sick for 3 years and I didn't know what was wrong. And I was depressed and I hated myself. And I felt like no matter how much I achieved, it wasn't good enough. So the personal development milestone that you asked me about was when I got to that point and I had supposedly, quote unquote, achieved it all, only to discover I still felt like crap inside. That didn't leave. Like when I retired, I didn't give that part up. I didn't give up the exhaustion. I didn't give up the fatigue. I didn't give up the sickness. I didn't give up the fighting with my husband. I just gave up. And I wanted to stick to the wall. So I did for days and days and days. And I just started to wake up and realize I'd been on this emotional hamster wheel of, you know, achieve, pursue, get an emotional high, and then crash. And that's when I realized this isn't the right way. Chasing the stuff, I mean, this isn't worth it. And success is not what I thought it was. Happiness is not what I thought it was. And it was through waking up that I just started to see the world differently, including myself, my own world. And, you know, it's been a very humbling journey just to realize how little it takes to make a person truly happy, but how much it takes if you're always looking at the wrong stuff.
And I will ask you about the concept of success and happiness. I just wanted to, because I'm curious, when you were about to retire, what were your expectations? What did you think? Because retiring at such a young age, what were you thinking that you would be doing afterwards? Apart from, okay, obviously resting for a period of time, but what else?
Well, I thought I would be resting. You're right. And I did, because I needed it.
Okay.
But the one thing that I thought that I would have, which was quite interesting, is I thought I was like, okay, great. I'm going to have all the energy and I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to do all these things. I didn't have the energy. And I thought I was going to have loads more time with my husband. Then I had more time with my husband than I wanted. And I was like, well, not sure that was a good idea. And I thought I would be more social, and I thought I would be more adventurous, and I thought I would, you know, do all kinds of things, but I was too depressed and too tired to do it all. And I was actually too sick. So what I got was an invitation to work on myself, work on my marriage, and actually work on my health. It's like, yay. Okay, so now I get to build myself back up again. So I have another full-time job. Cool.
We all share this full-time job, building up ourselves and creating ourselves, or constructing who we truly are. But coming back to the concept of success, you say that humanity shares a destructive illusion of what success is. So do you want to explain that to me?
Sure. I'm not really sure how it is in the UK or in Greece or whatever, but I can tell you how it is in the United States, particularly the New England area. Success is measured in awards. Success is measured in how big your house is, what brand of car, what clothes you wear, et cetera, et cetera. And I can't tell you how many articles of clothing I used to own because I thought that they would make me look, be successful. Turns out I actually hated them a lot. They were uncomfortable. They bunched. They weren't my style. I
Yeah.
remember, just being like, oh, well, if I don't have a Mercedes, I'm not successful, and just feeling a lot of these things. Meanwhile, I don't want one. So that was a big point of liberation to realize, oh, I don't want one and I can still be successful anyway. Cool. It's the amount of awards you have. It's how much money you have. And it's like, it just felt like this unsustainable race to the finish line. But it's like, what's the finish line? Death? Like, what's the point here? So success, I don't know. It's like success could even be something like, do you make your coffee at home or can you afford to go to Starbucks every morning before you go to the office? Like, do you shop at Whole Foods or, Price Chopper for your groceries? Like it's just like, it's a difference in so many things about the life I had built and that so many other people are still building. It's all about status symbols. And usually a lot of the people that have the symbols of status don't actually have status. They just have the symbols of it. And I was totally living that life for a long time. I had so many of the symbols, but I didn't actually have the status. I just had, debt. I had a bunch of crap I didn't like. I had clothes that I didn't like how they looked on me. And I actually didn't even have a sense of style. Like for years, I would always be like, oh, I don't know how to dress. No. I do know how to dress. I just can't stand this crap. And I don't know how to dress for that because I hate it. So it's definitely been very interesting to realize how people have been defining success and how to look the part. But it's so hollow. When you look the part, you rarely are the part.
You said you asked about how things are in UK or in Greece, and I can assure you that it is the same. The measure of success, at least what society or what most people deem success to be, is very similar to what you described. So tell me, what have been your realization after your research and your journey? So how do you consider success to be right now? What do you think of it? How do you define it?
Oh, much differently. Well, I told you I was depressed and I was staring at the wall, and that was my big kind of personal development crossroads, right? I just woke up and I was realizing I was on this crazy cycle. The big wake up call for me was realizing, hey, you're in a cycle and it's actually really destructive. Oh. So I wanted to know, well, if success and happiness, as I've been defining them, give me this result, clearly my definition is horribly wrong. So what is happiness? What do the happiest people have in common? And how can I be happy too? So that was the big thing that I kind of arrived at when I had started to do a bunch of thinking. I started doing a lot of work to observe people's behavior, including my own, thoughts, including my own, taking a look at the choices that people make, how other people define happiness, and also figuring out what are the common threads and what seem to make people truly happy, and just really trying to unravel the whole thing. I found a couple things. One, happiness and success are actually highly subjective. But we don't give ourselves permission to define it on our own unless we have extraordinary levels of comfort with ourselves and levels of self-acceptance. So number one, it's highly subjective because my definition of happiness will be very different from yours, and that's actually a good thing. Your life should be a reflection of your deepest desires, not my deepest desires or whatever the ads on the telly are telling us to actually aspire to, right? So happiness is subjective. It can actually be created through habitual thought pattern. And it is something where we're in control of what we actually experience in life. Because it turns out that once we start to regard our thoughts as the origin of happiness, not the stuff we do or the stuff we have, if we actually decide to be happy first, it gives us incredible liberty to kind of view the world differently, view ourselves differently. And boy, you wouldn't believe the amount of courage you get when you have like, I guess, the self-love that is required to reject societal norms and do things your way.
Do you think that this is feasible for everyone to reject societal norms, as you say? Because one would argue that, well, it's easy for you to say that because you have gone over the other side. But what about the people who may be really in a different position? Can they reject it like that?
Yeah, they can. I'll pick on my poor husband. For a guy that never shows up in podcasts, he's mentioned an awful lot. Um, so, so I live on the island of Maui, right?
Yeah,
I moved here as a result of becoming happy. I did not move here and then become happy. I want to be really clear about that.
sure.
Maui is not the thing that will make you happy. You will make yourself happy. So we moved here. I was all excited to begin my new life and I was feeling good. And my husband was feeling good too. And he started a tourism business. And then COVID showed up and then there's no tourism. So he has been around a lot and he's had an opportunity to really look at himself. And I think he's a really shining example of kind of what this can look like because he is a person who had a really rough background with a terrible upbringing. And I don't want to like throw him too much under the bus or expose his life, but he had a very, very difficult upbringing. And he's an immigrant. He's from Italy. He came to this country as a little boy and didn't speak English. And he's had to fight his way through a lot of life. And then he finally started the business of his dreams. It was going really well. COVID showed up and took it all away. And he's been unemployed ever since. And he has basically been demoted to like housekeeper and chef. And that can really erode a man's well-being, a woman's well-being. But for my husband in particular, the Italian man who wants to be the provider and the caretaker, and now he's married to me who I need none of those things. Like he can't do anything. And it's challenged his identity. It's made him question everything. And the very thing that he came to Hawaii for was to build his own life of his dreams was taken away. So in looking at his own life, is success and redefining societal norms, is it possible for him? It is, and people do it in their different ways. For him, he has used this opportunity as a chance to really look inward and define, I never want to do this again. I never want to do that again. And I'm actually really content doing things this way, and this means I need to pursue this career path. And I think it's one of the things, like, believe me, I hate this COVID crisis just as much as everyone. And despite all that, there's remarkable opportunity in it because it's been such an invitation for so many of us to shift our perspective, particularly those of us that have lost their employment. It's a wonderful time to think and really define. And it's like, well, hey, if your income has just gone away, maybe you can start a small business. Maybe you can actually use this as an opportunity to like finally dig into that spirituality you always wanted. Or, when you finally put on real pants again, you discover, I don't like these trousers. I actually really prefer these kinds, So there's tremendous opportunity in here for all of us. And average humans, which I am one of them, we all have an invitation to define happiness differently. And it doesn't mean we need to say screw you to our employers. It doesn't mean that we need to set our, lives on fire or throw out the stuff that we've built. It just means that we can look at it differently, like, oh, that car that I have, that actually doesn't make me that happy. So you know what, maybe when my lease is up, I'm going to get a different one that does make me happy. Or I actually don't like wearing this stuff. Once I've got some money again, I'm going to get some different things. It's just the courage to just choose what we want and reject the ads and the marketing and everything else,
I get it. Thank you. So during this research then that you've done after you retired, you said that you uncovered all the things the big list of things that don't make us happy, which you already mentioned many of them. However, you discovered six things in particular that happiness comes from, and that is also the topic of your book. So, do you want to explain this to me?
Sure. So the whole personal development crossroads I was at, right? The whole wake up in observing people, my own behavior, I just kept noticing there were lots of things that made people happy. Like, someone could do yoga and they get really happy from it, or they would go on a vacation and get really happy from it. But there's also lots of other things where you could find another human being doing the exact same thing, going to yoga or whatever, going on vacation, and not get happy from it. So it led me to believe that, I wonder, maybe it's not yoga that makes us happy. Maybe it's not vacations that makes us happy, but maybe it's the person doing it. So, well, what is it about the person that makes those things so satisfying or not? And I was like, well, thoughts become things. And there's a lot of this. I had done some personal development and reading and retreats for years. So I kind of had some framework of knowledge to work with. And I've always known that thoughts become things, right? We all know that. It's not a new phrase. But once I started examining, like, well, why would someone do that? Why would someone do that? Why would someone be happy because of that? Why would someone not be happy because of that? And the more I kept looking at all of the why, you can imagine how fun I was as a 3-year-old. Mommy, why? Why? No, not very fun. But it served me really well for this research project. And, I just started looking at the why, and I started writing down tons of information. You should see my dining room. It was like littered with index cards, like loaded with notes. And the thing that was really fascinating is like the more I started to like categorize the information and like put them in relatable like patterns, I was like, oh, okay. Well, there's 6 things here. And these are 6, they're not 6 ideas. They're not 6, like, that would be nice things. They're not aspirations. These are actually 6 things that people do all the time. What are these? But these are not physical things. These are actually mental things. These are 6 mental habits. Oh, eureka. Okay. So figuring out that it was 6 mental habits was groundbreaking. I'll tell you about the habits in a minute, but I want to preface this by saying, at no point in this discovery process or this research process was I like, wow, is that concept groundbreaking? The concept of each of the habits themselves, because they're just the words we're already familiar with. The habit number 1 is kindness. We've all heard of kindness, right? But most of us think of it as how we treat other people. But the revolutionary concept is, number 1, it's how we treat ourselves. And number 2, more specifically, this is a mental habit that can and should be cultivated. And the happiest people have these 6 habits already deeply embedded in themselves. And the crazy part is, like, if you take a look at these 6 habits and give everybody a score of like 1 to 10 of like mastery, a lot of the happiest people, they're not a 10 across the board. Sometimes they're like an 8 or 9, or maybe like they're a 3 another, but the 5 that they're really, really good at supports that 1 that they're probably a little weak in. So the thing about all of this was probably I guess the game changer for me was realizing that these 6 habitual mental thought patterns dictated so much about how happy we are, what kind of lives we live, who we become, how we handle challenges, how we enter adversity, how we deal with tragedy. It was, oh my God, it was like so mind-blowing for me. And it, again, like once we start talking about the habits themselves, you realize the words are not that novel, but repositioning them as mental habit that we can cultivate, it's like, oh.
Yeah, you say that they are behaviors that we have every day, every minute, actually, that define how we interact with ourselves and the world around us. Do you want, in a nutshell or briefly, share those 6? You already talked about the kindness. Do you want to share the other ones? Just a few words about each of them.
Sure. So the habits are kindness, acceptance, gratitude, presence, goodness, and intention. I'll briefly explain them.
Sure.
So Kindness is how we treat ourselves. And these are the thoughts, words, and actions of love to ourselves from ourselves. So this is not how we treat others. It's us looking in the mirror and being like, yeah, I look great today, or I'm going to crush this meeting. I'm going to do a good job, versus the typical narrative that we have of, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this, right? We all
Yeah.
have stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when we actually master the habit of kindness, we start to have thoughts like that less and less and less until they actually go away. So habit number 2, acceptance, is the feelings of unconditional love that we have from ourselves, of ourselves, right? This is, it's respect, it's appreciation, and it is love that we direct towards ourselves. It's how we feel about ourselves. Kindness is how we treat ourselves. Acceptance is how we feel about ourselves. They're two different things. Gratitude is the third habit. Gratitude is, it's essentially the lens of appreciation through which we look at all of life, particularly the hard stuff and the things we take for granted. Think about, like, so if you'll notice in my bio, there's probably like a little bit of information there about how I overcame domestic abuse. I did. And I could choose to look at that situation as, oh my God, poor me. I went through this. It was awful. It was awful. But if I can choose powerfully to be like, wow, it revealed the beast inside of me. I choose to be grateful for this experience and what it taught me, not so much that I had the crap kicked out of me, but I choose to be grateful for what I got out of it. So that, it's a big shift. And most of us take so much of life for granted. When we can actually marvel and get back to appreciation, it's huge. So habit number 4, presence, is choosing the moments right in front of us, not allowing distractions. And oftentimes we spend so much of our lives caught up in the past or the future, or buried in our digital devices, just watching and reading information about how others live their lives. We totally forget to live our own. So that's not good. Goodness, habit number 5, is it's all about energy management. It's managing the energy that comes into you, and that also that you're able to contribute to things. So it's the active and purposeful addition of good to your life, and the active and purposeful subtraction of bad from your life, because these things affect your outlook, your overall like aura kind of energy, but also your endurance and your ability to just do stuff, right? So it's kind of fluffy woo-woo, but it's also practical. The final habit, intention, is it's how we process our desires. And the habit of intention gives us clarity, and it gives us ambition, and it really answers the questions of like, well, what do we really want? How are we going to go after it? And when is it going to materialize? It's the habit of continually moving the ball forward, even a little bit at a time, and just really doing everything in a nice, clear way. So the thing about these habits is it's not a menu. You're not just supposed to be just pick and choose, be like, oh, I'll have number 3. That's very nice. Thank you. No, it's not a menu. You're supposed to actually have mastery of all 6 of them, and they work together. So for example, kindness, if you're better at kindness and you're really good at it, and you speak to yourself with incredible love, and you're always building yourself up, can you imagine the impact it's going to have on your intention? You're going to feel more inspired to like do and believe that, you know what, I can solve this problem, and I'm going to, and you just take the spirited action. If you feel more grateful, you're more likely to opt into moments and be present with them, and so on.
Thank you. That's great. There is actually one of them that I would like you to expand a little bit more. You probably, it's the one that you said the least about in your description, and it's the one that fascinates me the most personally. It's the goodness, or the energy management that you said.
Okay.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about when you say energy management? How do you mean it, and how
I would
can we
love to.
actually, manage it ourselves, and maybe take some kind of action to improve on that?
Absolutely. I'd love to. Goodness is such a great habit to dive into, because it's it can be really accessible, like right now. I don't care where you are in your habit journey. It's accessible. So let's say you're living your life and you probably watch the news and you're watching the world fall apart and doom all around you. Have you ever done that? Probably.
Yeah.
So this affects your energy. If you're constantly scrolling in your social media and your news feed and you're just seeing the news and just bad thing after bad thing after bad thing after bad thing, this actually erodes your spirit. It erodes your energy to want to do good things. I've never, and I mean never, seen anyone get up from a session of about an hour and a half of like bad news and think, wow, I'm so motivated to go and do amazing things with my life. I can't wait. No, you're getting motivated to drown yourself in a bucket of beer. Like, it's just really depressing. And like, we just need to own that, right? Social media has become somewhat toxic for a lot of people, me included. News, I've never liked it. But then there's also toxic situations where sometimes we have bosses that are absolutely terrible to us, or sometimes we have a narcissist in our lives where they just like take and take and take. And I mean, God, there's so many things. Sometimes, these things are physical habits like smoking or drinking too much or never going to the gym or whatever, right? So we do things that kill our motivation and kill our spirit. Think of energy as our spirit and our like, yeah, I can do things, right? But also our physical reserves and our ability to do it, our endurance. Like, no, if I sit through like even 20 minutes of just bad news, it has an effect on my psyche. I can't do things, right? So that's the bad side of the goodness habit. And that's the stuff we have to work to remove. The good side of it is we actually have to take a look at our lives and be like, oh, you know what? I have a half an hour and I typically choose to spend this time scrolling through social media. But actually what makes me feel better is calling a friend. So I think I'm going to do that. Or maybe I'm just going to read a book that makes me happy. Or I'm going to go to yoga. Or I'm going to meditate for a bit. Or I'm just going to clean my kitchen because, damn it, I like a clean kitchen. Or I'm going to go for a walk or whatever. Or not, right? We live on autopilot. I mean, I don't think that this is really new information for anyone. We know we do it, but we have to have the courage to do something about it. And goodness as a habit is the continual self-awareness of the choices we're making and the willingness to redirect our choices from hurtful to helpful. And when we actually master the habit of goodness, we have boundaries. We treat ourselves better. You'll notice that we have less room in our lives for people treating us like crap. No, I don't have time for the news. I'm sorry. I don't have the energy to be upset today. We will, we'll automatically search for things like, I don't feel like I've done enough nice things for myself today. I think I really need to do something else. And it sounds like such a pie in the sky idea especially like for parents of young children. But sometimes the goodness could be, you know what, I'm going to read my kid an extra story because it makes both of us happy. Or I'm going to cuddle the dog for just an extra 2 minutes because, boy, everybody wins when we do that. I mean, it can be little things. It doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing of, oh, I'm going to go to the spa today, although that's enjoyable. It's not the point. It's the little minute-to-minute decisions that add to us versus subtract from us.
Thank you for this explanation. It's makes complete sense, and it's actually very actionable. And I like to always to give to the listener one actionable item of something that they could pick from this conversation. And you already gave this. For me, this is very important, and anyone can implement that because it is simple.
Very simple.
It is simple. Do you want to give one more actionable item out, maybe of those 6 habits, maybe on one of the other 5, something else that is also simple and one can start implementing it straight away and make a difference in their lives?
I actually think that instead of doing that, it would make more sense if I can kind of add some rich texture to this goodness thing, just because it is accessible. So it's one thing to hear me talk about it, and it's great, right? But how do you get started? The first step with anything, right, is number one, you have to learn about the habits, which we're doing, right? Number two, you have to actually take powerful self-assessments. Where am I now? You can't fix anything unless you actually begin with self-awareness. And that's really what I would invite anyone listening. Like, you really can master all of these habits. And you don't need to be an extraordinary human to do it. And even marginal improvements will make your life feel better. So when it comes just to the habit of goodness, just that one, assess and ask yourself this question: how much good do I purposefully add to my life? And how much negative do I purposefully remove from my life? How much good is accidentally in my life? And how much bad is accidentally in my life, right? So it's the self-awareness piece, and that's always the great place to start. And that applies to all of these habits, right? Obviously, slightly different questions for each. But step 3 is also deciding, well, what would my life look like at the idealist expression of this mental habit? So if I were me, if I were a master of the habit of goodness, what would that look like for me, this particular human? Who cares about Joe over there? But like, what does it look like for me? So maybe, maybe for you, it will be taking 5 minutes to yourself before you go to bed and just enjoying the process of winding down for the night. Or maybe you realize that you have some toxic relationships and you need better boundaries, or you just need less time on the news. Like, what does mastery look like for you? And that's important, because if you understand the goal, which is the habit, and then you understand where you are and you understand where you're trying to go, right? Then you can actually build your map, which is step 4, which is mastering the habit. And how do you do that? You consciously do it. And the thing about the habits is they're supposed to be unconscious. That's what a habit is, right? It's an unconscious thing we do repeatedly. But when you wish to master anything, and for me, my dentist implored me to master the habit of flossing. So, right? And I do. The philosophy of all of that is only floss the teeth you'd like to keep. Fair enough, right? But the thing about that is, in the beginning, you have to consciously do it. And you have to do it when it's uncomfortable. And you have to make sure that you're doing it the right way, not just half-assing it, right? You have to do it fully the right way, consciously, and force yourself to do it. But if you do it repetitiously over enough time, consciously, and before it's comfortable, eventually it will become a habit, and you'll get the benefit, and you won't even think about the habit anymore. That's the goal. Believe it or not, the habits are simply a means to an end. They're not even the point. You're the point.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. This is a really fascinating conversation, and it saddens me that we were running out of time soon. Laura, let me ask you some quick fire questions as well to start wrapping things up. First one is, what does personal development mean to you?
Working on yourself. Just building yourself up to be the person you want to be, whoever that is.
If let's say you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, what's the one piece of advice you would give the young Laura?
To be honest with you, probably nothing, because 18-year-old Laura was really stubborn and didn't listen to anyone, so I wouldn't waste my breath. I'd probably be like, wow, that's me at 18? I had a lot of fat in my face. Wouldn't bother telling me anything at that age. Nope. Maybe like wear a little less black. You look like you're going to someone's funeral.
And let's say you had a magic wand and you could change something in the world as it is today. What would you change?
Well, that's not a really brief answer, but I'll do my best. I've kind of long since believed that people are mistaken when they say that greed is the root of all evil, or money is. Those are not true. I firmly believe that insecurity is the root of all evil. I say that in air quotes, because when people do bad things, it's because they're desperately trying to make themselves feel better, make themselves feel more important, secure more, safety for their family. But if people feel truly secure, right, they're going to know their needs are met. They're going to know that they're loved. They're going to know that they deserve to be here. And they're going to know that they don't need to get anyone else's approval because they only have their own. Think about world leaders. Think about, world leaders that do terrible things, right? Usually they're doing it for a sense of inflated ego. They don't actually like themselves as much as they would have you believe they do. Take a look at people that steal. That's because they can't meet their basic needs, and they don't believe that they can come about it honestly, so they use crime. And maybe they've had disadvantages and things like that. Or you have people oppressing others. It's not coming from a place of self-love. It's not. And then you get people that have drinking problems and drug problems. It's because people don't feel good inside. So if I could actually fix one world problem, it would be to give people deep, genuine security, which is the entire mission of what I'm trying to do here. Because if I can take the mission of the 6 habits and I can actually influence the population, even just 1 billion people on the planet, of which will soon be 8 billion, right? If I can influence this many people to see improvements and master these habits, parents will be better parents, will raise happier children, will be able to see better leadership across the entire world. You'll see people treating each other better, and you won't see so much awful, deplorable behavior because people don't feel like crap inside. That's where it comes from.
I see what you mean. Thank you. Laura, please share with us, how can people connect with you, find out more about you and your book?
So you can connect with me at the6habits.com. You can also go there to buy the book, the audio book. There's a 90-day program if you're interested in mastering the habits and you'd like some help doing it. But I do encourage everyone, get the book. Go online, because for such a short investment, can learn about the habits in detail. And with every copy of the book, be it audio or whatever, you get full comprehensive workbooks that actually help you to discover where you are and what mastery will look like for you. So it actually lays out steps 1 through 3 that I talked about a few minutes ago for you. And it's all included with the book. So go get the book. You can get it at the 6 habits, THESIX habits.com. And if you prefer Amazon, you can get the ebook and the paperback there. But if you go to the6habits.com, you can get everything you need.
Fantastic. Laura, we talked about quite a few things. Is there anything that you were hoping we would talk about today and we completely missed it?
Hoping? I don't know. I always enjoy these interviews because it's always a fun surprise, but I'd love to give everybody a parting thought. Sometimes we don't believe that we're worthy of happy or success, and sometimes we don't believe that it's possible for us. I'd like to pop that bubble. It's possible. And I'm probably the most stubborn human alive, aside from my mother. And if I can create this kind of change within myself as a really, really stubborn human who basically had like nearly 40 years of doing it the wrong way as a deeply ingrained habit, anyone else can, and you don't need to master it overnight. The invitation is to just take action. Take action, believe in yourself enough to know that, you know what, I think I deserve better and I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm willing to take a tentative, even shaky first step, but I'm going to do it. And that's where the book is. If you're able to get the book from the6habits.com, just do the work. Do the work. That's the most important thing I could possibly say to anyone, is do the work.
Thank you very much for this parting thought. And I want to wish you all the very best with your mission, which is it's amazing, and I'm actually delighted that I was able to play a little part in sharing this message. So thank you very much for your time and for this incredible conversation we had, Laura.
Truly a pleasure. I wish it could have been longer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe and review Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts, and also share this podcast with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to gain access to exclusive content while supporting this podcast, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpad. If you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you, or if you have any questions, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. Again, the link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/pdmgroup. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.